broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and good morning, everyone, depending on where you are in the country. My name is Andrea Baer, and I'm the Climate Services Program Manager in the Western Region National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. We are going to talk to the Southeast Regional Climate Center Director, Chip Konrad, today. He's in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and he is part of the Department of Geography at the University of North Carolina. We're also going to hear from Art DeGaetano. He's the director of the Northeast Regional Climate Center at Cornell University, and he's in Ithaca, New York. Although these two climate centers do focus a lot and they are experts in their region, they also have a lot of great tools at all of the regional climate centers that are usable by anyone in the country. So they all have something to offer everybody, in addition to being experts in their own regions. So I'm looking forward to hearing from both Chip and Art today. I do want to remind you, we're going to save questions until the end. Please put those down in the chat. There should be a section down there. Just go ahead and put those in there, and Jenna Myers will get to those at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Chip, and looking forward to hearing about the Southeast. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. It's great to have this opportunity to present on some of our tools and to tell you, some of the tools, the updates and so forth that we have on that. Talking about upgrades to probably our two most popular tools, and so I'm going to go right into that, and I'm going to. I know some of you are not familiar with the tools, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So the first one is climate perspectives, and so this is being used by far more than any of our tools, and we see the usage continuing to go up. But it provides basically an ongoing and provides an assessment of the ongoing and recent state of the climate. And we've considerably expanded the number of stations that's available for. Traditionally, we only had it for our region, the Southeast, but we've expanded it to the rest of the country, and I'll say more about that in a second. But basically, it provides a fluid perspective on the magnitude of temperature and precipitation anomalies across different periods. This goes from basically the prior day, the prior 2 days, the prior week, prior month, going all the way back to the prior 2 years. And so it's updated once a day. So it's very dynamic. It also provides historical analogs with the recent weather that we're having. And so I'm going to just go right in and show you an example of this. And so I pulled up a climate perspectives for Reagan Airport for Washington, D.C., right across the Potomac there. And so I want to just direct your attention here because I know some of you probably haven't seen it before. So I pulled this up yesterday, which was Monday. And so the most recent climate perspectives is for the prior day. So this was Sunday, April 16th. And just looking across here, it provides the high temperature, the low temperature. So it's exceedingly warm there at Reagan. It's 81 degrees, and you can see it was 12.6 degrees above normal, ranked as 10th warmest in a record going back 94 years. You can see the low of 60 there, a little bit more anomalous in terms of ranks, tied for 6th warmest. And what's really useful and what you don't find anywhere else is it gives the closest geographical analog. In this case, in terms of temperature, that high of 81 and that low of 60, that's most equivalent to Houston, Texas, okay? And for the Washington, D.C. area, that high of 81 is most similar to what you would experience on June 1st. The low of 60 would be most commonly experienced, around May 22nd. And so that's just the first row there. You can see the past 2 days, the past week, past 2 weeks. And then the last one that you can fully see there is month to date there. And you can see there month to date, so the first 16 days of April, the average temperature was 74.7. So that was like over 9 degrees above normal, ranking it as second warmest. 51.6 for the for the average low temperature, 5.6 degrees above normal, second warmest. Put those two together, basically the weather for the first 16 days of April is most equivalent to Charleston, South Carolina. And in terms of the calendar year, there at Reagan. That's most similar to the period of, at least for the high temperature, the period of April 30th to May 15th. So that's something a lot of media sources, will use this a lot to basically give users a sense, of the unusualness of what's going on. And I don't have time to show, but if you go back the last year, the last 2 years, inevitably you'll find with the temperatures that they're ranking way up there. You can also do sort, so there's a button there for view history, and so you can sort them from the the warmest to the coolest, or the coolest to the warmest, and so forth. So what have we done? Well, we've expanded this so that there's now more selections for stations in the Southeast. We've had something called forecast perspectives. It's basically the same thing, but we're using NDFD data, so hourly National Weather Service forecast data, to go out into the future. And so we've extended it from 3 to 5 days. And so on this tool here, you select your most recent date. There's a wider range there. So it goes into the future for 5 days. So we have that for all the stations in the Southeast, and we're going to expand this to basically to the rest of the country later on this year. We're going to have at least a minimum of 20 stations in major cities, and hopefully we'll be able to get somewhat more than that. And there's other parts to this tool. I could spend a whole hour talking about it. I invite you to explore it. But another big upgrade is that we've seen a large increase in the station coverage outside of the southeastern U.S. And so basically now we cover essentially all the ACIS stations, those that have a 20+ year record and also have reasonably complete data for the entire U.S. If we go back to April 2021, we had roughly 1,210 stations. Now we're up to 1,864 stations. So we've had more than a 50% increase in the stations here. And so that's reflected here in the map, and I'm just kind of showing you here an example. So this is precipitation basically for the last 3 months, total precipitation. And we have it, you can see here, we put the values down. Instead of it being contoured, we have the actual values presented, and it's colorized so that you can really see the variations. And so this is for much of the year, and you can see where the green areas that have gotten the most precipitation. The Sierra Nevada, for example, in California, if you look there real closely, you can see 40.23 inches there at one location. So this really gives you a really nice map to where you can really see, where the variations are. And then you can get ranks, you can get departures from normal. And here, the ranks are really highlighted here. So the greens are where they're exceptionally high. You can see a number of number 1 ranks there. And then likewise, and in the DC area, you see a number of browns there. I guess the one that stands out the most, there's one location, I think in Pennsylvania, that's ranked as the second, basically as the second driest there. Okay, the second tool I want to tell you about and that we've been updating is called the Wet Bulb Globe Temperature Prediction Tool, WBGT, and it provides really the most robust measure of heat stress, and it is increasingly used in athletic and occupational settings, and maybe starting to get used just generally in recreational settings. And wet bulb globe temperature is really useful because it's, unlike the heat index, it includes also the effects of wind speed and also of solar radiation and just really more broadly radiation. So if you're in a city environment and there's a lot of IR coming up from the asphalt and from the buildings, it picks up on that there as well. And so a lot of states for their high school athletic programs have set up WBGT guidelines. A number of these states actually require WBGT to be measured by the practice field. And so there's some variation across states, but they have guidelines here, and you can see these are the guidelines for the state of North Carolina. You can see there these different flag levels. For example, if the WBGT gets to 90 or above, you're required to suspend practice. And so our tool, just real simply, what it does is it ingests hourly gridded forecasts. These are the weather forecast grids at a 2.5 kilometer scale. We ingest the NDFD for the first, I think, 36 to 48 hours. And then we get 3 hourly forecasts from the National Blended Model, the MBM. So we ingest those, and we have a sophisticated routine that takes the air temperature, the humidity, the pressure, the wind speed, degree of cloud cover, and also the solar azimuth angle, and basically generates an estimate of wet bulb globe temperature. And so it's a pretty simple tool. So you see the interface there on the right. So the user just basically clicks the website. You can see it there, and then you get a map there. This map here is a little bit dated because we have a much broader geographic domain now. You basically pick your location on the map. Of course, most people don't do that now. Most people, I don't think, know exactly where they are. And so that you can see the white box there. So most people just pop in a location, and then you just hit the submit button there, and then you're presented there with a forecast. We also see up there at the top, there's basically some help menus, like, for example, what is wet bulb globe temperature, how to measure it, etc. And so I've kind of blown this up here a little bit just to kind of show you what the forecast would look like for a location. So this is selected from last summer here in the Triangle area, North Carolina, forecast for Durham. And basically the solid black line there is the prediction of wet bulb globe temperature. And then you can see basically the flag levels indicated by the coloration there in the background. And so this was an exceedingly hot and humid sunny period in North Carolina, and you can see every day the temperature getting up there into the black, basically into the black flag levels. You see the area of gray that's around that, and that basically identifies the range within which wet bulb globe temperature can be if there's varying degrees of shade or cloudiness. And so the bottom edge of that gray there would be an estimation what the wet bulb globe temperature would be completely in the shade, or if the skies basically become cloudy.
Same as Chip, a little bit of update of what we're up to here at the NRCC. Basically, and now I can't move. We'll get it. There we go. So I want to kind of maybe start out I think most of you know about us basically via ACIS and XMACIS and Now Data and things like that. A little bit about what you might find if you come to our website, which over the last few months we've done some updates on. I think the first thing is kind of two kind of newsy things on our website. The first one is an ongoing blog. It pretty much gets updated twice a month. So the most recent one up here from the end of March, and typically what the blog will do is do kind of a half-month sort of update of climate conditions and things like that. So the one at the end of March kind of looked at March snowfall departures, a little bit about the winter and things like that. And in some cases, maybe that blog will highlight a significant storm or something like that. What we also have on our webpage under the blog is climate news. So this is updated more frequently. It's kind of something for ongoing conditions. So, maybe it's updated every week if things are going on. And in this case, we were looking at the developing drought in the mid-Atlantic region of our area. Kind of if you dig down a little bit deeper in our website, a bunch of kind of summary products that are a little bit different than you might get on XMACIS or Now Data, a bunch of type mapping products. So again, kind of focused on our region. I would say if you're familiar with the national ACIS maps, they're kind of our homegrown version of those maps, so a little bit different in their mapping software and things like that. And you can see a number of different selection criteria that you can do. This actually is going the other side. So we're showing average temperature departure for winter in this case. We can look at snowfall departures and such. And also on that page, kind of some summary tables. So these are data we get directly from NCEI. What they're useful for doing is perhaps aggregating things over states or over the region as a whole. So you can kind of get an idea for this past March where a lot of the states in our region were among their highest or warmest on, at least in the upper part of the period of record. This is coming from the climate division data. So a ranking of 1 would be 229. So have many stations in New England or states in New England that are in the upper part of the warmest Marches on record. And again, you can kind of see the extremes in here as well to get some perspective there. And then also for any state or the region as a whole, or actually these states are clickable and that will expand to climate divisions, you can kind of see the long-term time series of temperature or precip or any of these things, degree days that you might choose to click on. If you're also not familiar, we do a monthly webinar, which reaches, depends, somewhere between 50 and 120 participants per month. The topics always start off with a kind of a recap of climate conditions for the past month, and then pretty much have a different topic each month. And we have some regulars, like the August one is always somebody from the Hurricane Center doing a hurricane outlook update. We typically have a spring one there. The March one was actually a flood outlook that somebody from the Hydro Prediction Center did. So a few timely ones that relate to that kind of in the fall. Coming into winter, we'll probably do an El Nino update. And then the other ones are just kind of interesting projects that are going on around the region. So in April, we're going to have a talk from the Northeast Climate Hub from the USDA as one of our partners to see what they're doing and things like that. And then we also do a quarterly outlook that go out by region. So this is our Northeast quarterly outlook that's on the webpage. We also do a special one for the Gulf of Maine and also partner with the Midwest RCC to do one for the Great Lakes states. And again, basically a significant weather events section, an outlook for the coming season, and on the back page, kind of a more in-depth look at a particular impact that we might have seen during the past quarter. Again, we've done a lot in expanding some of our products. We have an expanded snow water equivalent project these are basically sites that actually do snow surveys. So these are on the ground measurements by different cooperators, some COCORAs, some utilities, some USGS. If you're a WFO in the Northeast, you've probably seen or heard about this. Basically in our northeastern states, we also kind of manage the entry portal for this. So a lot of the Weather Service offices in New England, New York, Pennsylvania are actually entering in their data that way. Gets coded up and sent out through, I guess it's through Chef to get out into the national feeds. We have some new ACES capabilities, and yeah, probably not a great slide, but what I want to highlight is actually we're now ingesting the NDFD and also RTMA and IRMA into ACES. We're using this on a lot of our hourly products for agriculture, and actually several of our products that require, in addition to looking at the recent climate, a forecast component. And if I remember the order of my slides, which I do, here's an example of something we're working with DOTs on. I'm showing Maine, but actually this product also extends further to our west with pages implemented for North Dakota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And basically the idea for this thawing index, it has to do with how much, what type of loads trucks can carry. So in a place like Maine, basically the state allows trucks to carry higher loads in the winter when the roads are frozen, but then they remove those, they call them weight premiums. They remove those restrictions in the spring as the roads start to thaw. So basically the thawing and freezing index indicate how frozen or thawed the roads are. And then, of course, if you might imagine, the DOT needs to get this out to the transportation companies. So we have a forecast that's in there based on the NDFD to use that. A number of different ag products. So here, this time of year, a lot of ag is worried about frost damage to the apple crop across New England and New York. And again, sort of looks at minimum temperature and both climatologically says what the probability of having apple blossoms be damaged by freezing temperatures. And they're not too bad actually across the Northeast despite our recent warm weather. And we also have a more real-time product with that. If you're interested in wind roses, check out again our station data page on the NRCC website, and you can generate wind roses based on the historical NCEI hourly record for showing Ithaca here. Kind of going away from that, some other things that we do outside the NWS that might be of interest to folks. We are actually the archive and the real-time collection point for a USDA network called SCAN. So you can see the dots there showing the available SCAN stations. SCAN stations are hourly. There's basically two networks or a network within the network. The red dots are tribal SCAN stations. So those are on in Indian nations, tribal nations across the country, including several in the Northeast. And the blue are just your typical SCAN stations. So you can see kind of heavily weighted to some parts of the country, but pretty good coverage, almost, I think, a SCAN station almost in every state. And from those SCAN stations, we also have a number of kind of graphers and products that we can do for this. So this is one of the tribal SCAN stations in Maine, showing a time series over, I guess, when I put together my slides last week. Hourly temperatures, hourly soil moisture, you can get wind speeds, humidity variables. Didn't rain much in Maine, so you don't see the precipitation there, but kind of some additional sources of data that you might not know about from where you normally get data from. We've also worked with NCEI to develop a grapher, a mapper for their gridded climate normals. So here I'm showing mean temperatures for the month of March. You have a number of different areas that you can select. So I happen to choose the state of West Virginia here. You can set your time period. You can set what normal you want to look at, max temperature. If you're interested in the maps, you can also play with the contour levels and play with the colors that you want to see, and then you're able to download the images. So this might be a good thing if you're doing a newsletter or a talk and you want to focus in on a particular state, or if you notice in the areas your particular CWA, climate division, or county, you might find this useful for looking at climate normals from NCEI. We also work with a network. It started out in New York, but basically has spread across the country. Again, these are hourly weather stations, each of the little kind of green and blue dots there. It's a network that's called NOAA, and what it does is it brings together a number of state agricultural mesonets. So in a lot of cases, these are sites that are run and maintained by the farmers themselves on their orchards or in their fields. In other cases, they're state-maintained mesonets, like the Environment Weather Network in Michigan, the New Jersey network, and the Delaware networks here in the Northeast. I'm sure if you're from here, you're familiar with Dave Robinson and Dan Leather's network. So access to each of these data, again, a number of kind of real-time outlooks or readouts, and a number of tools where you can look at daily summaries and actually hourly data. So I'm showing a site here in an orchard in Massachusetts. So you see the hourly temperatures and precip and RH and wind speeds and things like that. So those might be useful for looking at conditions in kind of unique areas where you might not think there are observations. And then kind of want to leave with maybe a little tease. I think coming soon, we have a project with NCEI to ingest their global historical hourly database into ACIS. Hopefully, we'll have that into the database by the end of the summer. At least that's when we're progged to do that. And what will follow quickly after that is the ability to generate ACIS-like products out of the hourly data. So you might imagine something like looking at dew point records or RH records wouldn't be that interesting. Wind speed records, probably wind chills and heat indices and things like that. So anything you can kind of think of that you might be able to do in regular ACIS, days above 90, well, we can change that to hours with wind chill above a threshold or something like that. So in the coming months, we'll be interested in hearing about some products. Hopefully this will be something we can take advantage of and leverage and factor into XM ACIS and NOW data. And then the other thing, what we plan on doing, the dates are still to be determined, but plan on hosting a series of ACIS training webinars. And this is in response to some requests from the Weather Service, but an increasing demand for people who want to develop their own products but use the ACIS database. So kind of how do you use the APIs to grab the data and get the types of data summaries that we can do and incorporate them into your own research programs, if that's what you're doing, or own websites. So hopefully Chip has gotten his technical difficulties figured out, and we can switch back to the Southeast.
Yes, thank you so much, Art. Lots of great information there, and I'm excited about all the new ACIS features. So
awesome.
Thank you so much. And it looks like we have you again, Chip. Yay.
Yep. I was just going to say, I think he is back, and I gave him presentership. Okay.
All right. So Jenna will get you.
He was just getting back at me because we couldn't agree on who was going first. So I think that's
true.
his underhanded way of making me go first.
This is true. That was pretty swift.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Chip, take it away.
Yeah, I had some sense that there might be some outages. So yeah, that's why I wanted you to go, Art. But hopefully, had two real brief outages here. Hopefully we won't have any more. So just real quickly, I'm going to go back. I'd started my presentation.
If you guys have questions, please submit them. But if we can go back to Art, if anybody has any questions for Art, I'll kick it off if no one else has one for right now. But Art, I just wanted to go back to your idea of the training webinars that you guys are going to be hosting. I do a lot of the training for the Weather Service, so I just was wondering, when do you see that happening? Are you going to host webinars from your shop? Are we going to be able to advertise to the Weather Service staff, or who's the audience? Is it going to be for? Who's it going to be for?
So basically, I think the audience, Jenna, is fairly broad, but it's mainly folks who would use kind of the behind the scenes capabilities of ACIS. So not somebody who would kind of look at an ACIS product on XM ACIS or NOW data or one of our other tools, but somebody who would like to basically write code to access the types of data that ACIS provides. So we have had we have heard that coming from folks from the Weather Service. So whether that might be folks who are coding and doing research projects for their CWAs, or folks that have some interest in perhaps doing some web development. So those state climatologists is probably going to be a big component of that. Actually, some of our colleagues in the RCCs, as there are going to be some new features with gridded data and things like that, so they would be an audience. And then we have just a number of other kind of private groups and things like that who use ACIS. Other folks in other states that are doing web development, not the SC, some some private companies like Climate Central. So those are mainly going to be the audiences.
Okay, and as far as advertising, will you at least you'll share that information with us so we can get it out to our field offices?
Yeah, without a doubt. We were hoping to do this. I mean, yeah, we had talked earlier on about doing ACES April, but obviously that hasn't happened. Kind of a little bit behind in some of the behind-the-scene changes to the gridded ACES that we wanted to include. So I think right now we're probably shooting for early fall. I mean, we talked about summer, but I think we kind of wanted to move away from summer, or particularly the high vacation time. So I think right
Okay.
now we're looking at something, September-ish.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Question coming in from Victor Murphy. Can you discuss with us what products are available via APIs? Who is your point of contact for this?
Yeah, so Victor, Keith would definitely be the contact, and anything that you see in NowData or XMACIS is available via the API. There's very little that comes into NowData or XMACIS where the data are processed other than through the API. So in the API, you can set, I want, days above 90 for this station over this time period, and I want the average, or I want the most, or the min.
Any other last minute questions for Art on new products and tools from the Northeast Regional Climate Center? I'm not seeing any other questions come in. So
I think we'll go ahead and end this, and we will come up with a clever way and get back to you all on on getting the information, because I know he had some really nice things to show, although we did get two really cool tools. So yeah, so
yeah, we will be in touch. I will the person who processes the recording isn't until tomorrow, so we'll work on that, and then we will be sending out the information via the listserv and let everybody know that way. But thank you very much, Art. Thank you so much for joining us and presenting and sharing the cool new things coming from the Northeast Regional Climate Center.
Awesome. Always good to meet with you guys.
Thanks, Art.
Bye-bye.
Right. Have a good day. Bye, guys. Thank you.